Hello, everybody. This is one of your hosts, Scott. I am still on location in the United Kingdom.
And I'm Andy, still on location in the United Kingdom as well.
It's fun being together in the same space, isn't it, Andy?
It is. It's been a good few days, and I'm very happy to have you here, and hope we can do this again.
It's been great, and maybe we'll do it on the other side of the pond next time.
Oh yeah.
Sure. This is the Tea and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. We are spending the month of April talking about selling tactics, getting really specific about things you can do to try and add more value into your pipeline and have it pop out the other side as sizably as possible. We started with sort of just some thoughts on what those tactics are, and then we've spent the last few weeks getting into some of those tactics more specifically. This is our final week of April. And our final category of tactics is going to be around events. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But before we do that, Andy, what's the story that you can share with us today?
Well, it's one making use of your time here. So on your first night over in the UK, we were paying attention to a Battle of the Bands event, and a bit heavier than what you're used to, but I think you still had fun anyway.
I'm a music fan, I have a few genres that I prefer, so yes, I probably wouldn't have done this on my own volition, but I'm glad I went.
No. Well, we were very happy to have you there, and it was really good. And I think a lot of people in the small town of Norwich were wondering who the hell's this Canadian guy turned up to this competition.
I didn't look like totally out of place, did I?
No, not at all. I think they just felt it was very special. Someone there with a North American accent. But anyway, the reason I want to talk about this is because it relates very much to business scenarios in terms of meetings and things. Because as we've discussed, one of the things that was very apparent are the people who were prepared and rehearsed and practiced, and those who just turned up and plugged in and played and hoped for the best. And those who had practiced and rehearsed obviously ended up going ahead and doing well and moving on in the competition. And those who just turned up and thought it would be okay, well, it wasn't, and they didn't go ahead.
And you know what? It's kind of a shared story on this episode. The ones who were not as well prepared still probably thought that they were prepared because technically they delivered just fine. Vocally, they delivered just fine. They knew the lyrics. They knew how the song and the tracks went together. They knew to engage the audience and the room. But the ones that went through knew that they weren't delivering. They weren't just rehearsing a song. They weren't just performing a song. It was a whole performance. They were able to sort of stitch together their set into something that was fluid, consistent, high energy, and it wasn't sort of separated, by the beginning and the end of one song and the next.
It was a whole thing. It was a show. It was an experience, and just like the good meetings as well and presentations, it took you on a journey. You knew where you were going, you knew where you were in it, you knew what was happening, and with the others, they turned up, they played some songs, and then they got off, and it was it's over now. And you do see the same thing in business meetings. You have sales teams and salespeople who will write the agenda, and they'll do the research, and they'll write everything down, and they'll rehearse it, they'll practice it, they'll workshop it together with colleagues, and they'll go through everything, and they'll be prepared for any potential questions, and they'll have rehearsed all of those, and the meeting will go really, really well. The customer will feel engaged, and there are those who go, right, we're going to have a meeting on Tuesday, and then they turn up and they give their spiel. And in many ways, they're doing the same thing as the other person who we just mentioned. But of course, the experience from the customer's perspective is very, very, very different. And that's, it's quite nice to be able to see that in the music world as well as the business world. It's the same thing. If you rehearse and you practice, you'll be successful. If you don't, you probably won't.
And that's right. And again, it's not just about knowing the material. I mean, I've kind of made the point, but in the business context, you can be doing these things like your job is to present. And so you're often just repeating what you've presented before, and it can become a bit rote and it can become a bit predictable, and you have to remember to make it feel spontaneous. You have to work on the performance of spontaneity. And I think that was one of the things that we saw work really well with some of those bands, and was a bit of a gap for others.
Yeah, completely right. Completely right. What are we talking about today? It's events.
Yeah. So we have under this category intentional networking. I think that's kind of similar to what we talked about last week with warm introductions, but in my mind, there's a little bit more to it. We have events that I think that you host, whether that's virtual webinars or physical. And then there's your sponsorship and participation in another event. Do you think those are distinct enough? How would you sort of?
Those are all very different, and all very relevant under that category that we should definitely talk through. I mean, if we start with the first one there, intentional networking, tell me what you had in mind for that one.
So I think first of all, this is another one of those ones that I think people neglect. They don't treat it as an activity they can be deliberate and intentional about. They just sort of figure that every once in a while, if they're good about making sure their marketing is working, that the networking sort of takes care of itself. But like warm introductions that we were talking about last week, intentional networking means that when you are a participant at an event, when you are attending some other event or even your own event, you're not just there to hope that you bump into somebody or something. You're not just there going like, well, I'll go to the event and maybe I'll learn something, or maybe I'll meet somebody. You have to go with the intention of meeting people and asking for introductions and exploring those relationships. And I think that can be misconstrued and misunderstood as being really salesy. You're not going around the room handing out your business card and going, hey, here's what I do, and you should hire me. You're going like, hey, by the way, this is what I'm up to. I mean, these are great because the barrier's already down. You're allowed to ask people, what do you do? And you're allowed to talk about business. When you're in a social setting, sometimes you're like, do we want to? But in those business contexts, you're allowed to say, hey, by the way, this is what I'm up to. What are you up to? Okay, great. Well, listen, do you know anybody that you think might benefit from? Is there anybody else here that you think I should talk to? And have you met anybody? Blah, blah, blah. And then move on. So, yeah. Would you do it any differently?
Only the addition would be the proactive outreach before the event. So getting in touch with prospective customers, getting in touch with existing customers and colleagues and business partners, anything like that, letting them know that you're going to be there and making a point of almost making an appointment of when you're going to meet them. It's very hard at an event to actually book a time and location and stuff, but to say, well, let's meet at your stand, or let's meet at this stand, or let's grab a lunch, or let's grab a coffee. But specifically planning to do that and to meet up at those events, and being very clear what you want to talk about as well, why you want to meet up. Because if you just say, oh, let's meet up, and people go, yeah, of course. And then it doesn't happen, because why would it? There's no need. If you bump into each other, that's nice. But if you actually intentionally say, I want to meet you at the trade show to discuss this thing, to introduce you to myself, or to share an idea that I have, or to introduce you to one of my colleagues, whatever it may be, but with a clear intention towards them, and that you have proactively reached out to them, is very important. Next one in the list is the own hosted events that you put on yourself. So webinars, physical events, seminars, and so on. You've got one coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we're going to be hosting the Digital Momentum Summit in Toronto on June 3rd. And this is because we wanted a chance to kind of have more opportunity to provide real value. Like, I went to a few events and trade shows last year, and we'll talk about that one next. But it's a little bit more hit or miss, or at least I suppose it can be. By hosting our own event, we're trying to do two things. One, we're trying to strengthen existing relationships. We're inviting all of our own customers and clients. Come on in. Let's make sure that we're giving you some value for the day. But then we're also trying to interest new prospects. We want to make sure that anybody else that's in our network that is sort of part of the network of some of the speakers that we have coming, or otherwise see some of the content that we're putting on LinkedIn and otherwise advertising, can show up, and they're not there to learn about Flywheel. They're not. I'm not. This is not a captive audience to do a sales pitch for. This is exclusively thought leadership. This is, I'm going to put in front of you an expert that knows something to help you. If you listen to them for an hour, I guarantee you're going to have a takeaway. You're going to be inspired. You're going to start thinking about how that applies to you and your business. You're going to make notes, and you're going to walk out of there going, I am better for having spent that time in that room. And we are going to do that over the course of an entire day with several speakers and lots of content. So I've been very selective about the people that we've put on the agenda to make sure that we're adhering to that objective.
Yeah. And that's exactly how to do an event. If you're putting on an event, provide value. Don't just rent a location and then expect people to come so that you can captively try and sell them stuff, because they won't come. And if they do come, they certainly won't come again. If you are providing value to them, giving them something that they couldn't have otherwise got, that's the reason to have a webinar. That's the reason to host an in-person event. Add value, bring value, bring something. It's again an intentional, directed, purposeful event that you're putting on with a specific goal, so people understand why they're doing it, what they're doing, and what you talked about last time as well about the importance of having this narrative arc.
Oh, that's right.
Is again something that must be there and must be very clear to the people who are potentially going to come, but also the people who, once they're there, why they're there, what is the link between all these different speakers. Are they just a group of random speakers who have got a big name to get you to sell tickets? No, they're there for a reason and for a purpose, to add value, and that value is very clear. At the end of this event, you will have gained this knowledge. You will have go away with this new experience, and that's really important.
And I want to emphasize, and this is going to, I think, be true no matter what style of event you're doing, because we have this sort of the challenge with both physical and virtual events. We also do regular online workshops on LinkedIn. Is the event, no matter how compelling the agenda and attractive and popular the keynote speaker, it does not sell itself.
No.
You then have to use the event as an anchor to do a lot of the things that we talked about last week. Correct. Intentional networking, word of mouth, door knocking. Like it's a lead magnet. It's saying, hey, by the way, if you enter into our ecosystem, there's this other opportunity, and it becomes a little bit more compelling. And for those that are already in your orbit, we'd love to have you in it. So I've had so much more success getting people signed up for this event that we're doing by sending personal one-on-one invitations that I have through any other mechanism that we've done.
You'll see on that particular topic, you'll see exactly the same thing in the music industry. A lot of people believe that you get a few good bands. Then it'll sell itself. Well, it won't unless you do some really highly targeted marketing to tell people that you've actually got these bands and this event actually happening.
Right.
People forget that. Go, oh yeah, we've booked Ozzy Osbourne for his last ever show. People will eventually hear about it, but again, that's word of mouth. But you've got to create that scenario. You've got to push it out there. So you can't just book a load of famous names and stick them in a venue and then put a poster up outside and hope someone will come.
Right.
You've got to be proactive and actually go out there and sell it as well and tell people about it. I mean, people will want to come. People see a value in these things, especially if there's a benefit at the end of it, like seeing Ozzy for the last time again. I remember seeing Black Sabbath at their last show in 2013. I've still got a t-shirt upstairs.
That's still the first time.
Exactly. Add value, bring things to that. And this is where it comes then to the sponsorship of other people's events and participating in other people's events, is that when you're there and when you're going to be doing that to support something else for someone else, then it's very, very important that you make sure that they are doing those things that we're talking about as well. Because if your name is on that event, if you're sponsoring an event and they're not behaving in that way, then people are going to associate you with an event that didn't go very well and was pointless, and that's not good either. So you've got to make sure that you are doing that. If you're attending an event, ask, what is the purpose of this event? What am I going to come away with? What am I going to gain? And what is the overall arc? Because sometimes they won't have thought about that, but they'll think about it fairly quickly if you start asking.
No, I love the fact that you mentioned that, because that is one of my biggest frustrations with going and sponsoring other events, is that they might do an okay job at filling the room, but it's not nearly as effective as it would have been if I was able to shape a little bit of the activity that they're doing, so that it's more conducive to who I want to see there.
Mhm.
I mean, listen, you want to sponsor events that are in line with the industry and the customer base that you're trying to get in front of. So choose wisely, but then make sure that you're holding those event organizers accountable, even the big event organizers. Yeah. Now, I think that when you're sponsoring and showing up at somebody else's event, when you're at a trade show or something like that, this is where a lot of those other pre-event activities that you already mentioned are absolute. You need a game plan for showing up at one of those events. And if you're at a trade show and you have a booth, I'm just amazed how many vendors show up, sit behind a desk and wait.
I know. It's insane.
And they sit in a chair behind a desk, behind a table, and they've got some business cards and some swag out on the table.
They're usually playing on their phone or on their computer
the
whole time.
Yeah, exactly. No, you forget that. You can have some collateral, but that's got to be at the back of your booth. You have to be standing up. You have to be out engaging with the crowd. You need to be able to draw people in. So sure, business card draws and giveaways and all that kind of stuff, but we offer some intellectual value. We offer a chance to workshop something live at the event, and we're also out there engaging with people, not by saying, hey, do you need a website? No, it's how's the show going? What have you sat in on? What conversations have you been involved with that are the most valuable? Just interact with somebody on a real personal level.
Exactly.
And you might spend 20 minutes talking to them and just get a good person in your network to do some intentional networking with later. But chances are you'll increase your likelihood. And then so you mentioned the before the event plan. So that's about getting sort of the meeting set up and whatnot. Then there's the showing up at the event plan and making sure you're engaging properly. And then there's the after event plan.
That's right.
And so, one of our business coaches that I do a lot of work with is a huge proponent of making sure that all of your event follow-up activities are done by what he calls wheels down. So by the time your plane lands going home, you have finished all of your follow-ups, all of your outreach, all of your, okay, let's book a time. Here's my calendar, all that kind of stuff. Now, listen, if it's in your own city or town or whatnot, same thing applies. Before you start and get back into the routine of your job that you go into work the next day, that is too late. You've got to get this all done at the event, in the trailing hour of the event, in the car on the way home, on the flight. Carve out your first hour or something like that of the early next morning. It's got to be done before you miss the moment.
No, I'm very very strict on that. That if you are at an event and you're meeting people, at the end of that day, before you go out for your fancy dinner and your drinks and stuff, you send the follow-ups for those days, and you get in that routine when you're at an event. And that's whether you're attending or actually, especially if you've got a booth. But you do it that same day. That same day before you go out and do things, because otherwise other things will come up. It'll get delayed. It will fall out of people's minds, and people will remember you because you followed up so quickly. The amount of times that if you get a follow up at all from a trade show, it comes like a week or 2 weeks later, and you're like, how am I supposed to remember what we talked about? It's like, and they often don't say anything. They go, oh yeah, oh shit, these are the business cards, right? Yeah, hi Andy, I met you at the trade show. Hope everything's well.
Yeah.
Here's my business presentation, sales dump.
Yeah.
And it falls flat, and it's kind of pointless. Even if it was something I was interested in, by then I already moved on and found something else, because I met plenty of other people at the trade show who were also selling the same sort of thing.
And I think you have to remember at these shows that the show is on a specific date. The show's date never coincides with anybody's buying cycle. It's not
Exactly.
It's not like, oh, if we do the show in September, everybody that attends will be ready to make a fourth quarter purchasing decision. No, oftentimes it will attract people who have a certain professional development budget, and they've identified that this might be a worthwhile event with some helpful content, and they signed up for it 6 months ago. Not because, oh, I'm going to need to make a purchasing decision. The amount of times I hear people say, oh, we closed a deal at such and such a show, I'm like, baloney. That did not happen. You met somebody, or somebody that you already knew came, you gave a little bit more confidence, you added some clarity, and you closed the deal later. Anyway.
No, it's very important. And just a quick note to all of the listeners, go back and listen to some of our earlier episodes on events, because we've deep dived into this subject before, and there's a lot of value in there, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it if you want to get in touch as well. And how can people do that, Scott?
You can go to tandtimbits.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Scott.